himself.
I'm gonna try to make a video where you can actually watch from my own point of view. For this battle I have chosen the Macedonians, and my opponent has picked the Seleucids.
Before Total War, back in middle school, what I would do during class when I was supposed to be paying attention, I would take pieces of scrap paper, notebook paper, draw huge continents on them. On these continents I would make up nations, and have these nations go to war with each other. They would have territorial lines and armies normally derived by X's and O's on the drawn continent. It was a hobby derived out of boredom throughout my classes, but also intrigue in city management, country management, and army management, also war management. And the only games back then that could scratch this itch would be the early Civilization games, Black and White, and SimCity. But on September 22nd, 2004, before I was even aware of it, Rome Total War was released, developed by Creative Assembly, and released by Activision. Now, the game prior to release had a workable game engine and cinematics for the television series, actually two television series, Decisive Battles by History Channel and Time Commanders by BBC.
The vast numbers of soldiers, the troop formations, how they fought, and how the battle was won. Get the view the generals wish they had. Now, on Decisive Battles.
Now, I hadn't watched both these shows until much later on around. By the time that I actually got my hands on Rome Total War, I started watching Decisive Battles. Unfortunately, I didn't watch Time Commanders until much later because I didn't have BBC back then. And Decisive Battles made me love this game even more. It basically was a History Channel documentary on battles taking place during the game's era. And it would play out what happened throughout the battles using the Total War engine, something that has never been done since then. The game takes place during the ending of the Roman Republic and the early Roman Empire, and you can choose one of three factions to play as. Obviously you can play as all three of them throughout your gameplays, but you can play as the Julii, the Brutii, or the Scipii, and they start on different sides or different areas of the Italian peninsula. They are essentially Rome. During the course of the game, you can unlock the rest of the factions, which there are many, either by defeating one at a time or beating the game, completing the campaign. You can use the armies in real-time battles, facing off against your opponents, having to outsmart the AI, which at first it can be difficult if you were a novice at the game, but after a few battles you will get the hang of outsmarting the AI. One of my most favorite parts of the game was probably the siege battles, mainly because the siege battles in both this game and Medieval 2, with all the other ones in between, are the most fun because they are very secular, very small. And I always loved how the enemy would, after you took the walls, they would run back to the center square. They would try to form up, blocking the exits, or the entrances I mean, and then you could surround them and attack them from all sides, trying to penetrate a hole. It was very, very amusing seeing the AI trying to block up or plug holes in their defenses. It was also amusing seeing them fall seeing the little units fall off the wall once you were taking them if you had wall battles. The game itself, in my opinion, was ahead of its time. On the campaign map, you could use spies, diplomats, assassins, counter-espionage, all of that, create alliances. There were so many options at your disposal. If you went all the way far up north, there was a territory that was the Amazon, so you could take out, and it would have Amazon warriors there, which obviously wasn't too historically inclined, but there were some things in this game that were more fantasy than anything. Specifically, the Egyptian faction. They are not the right Egyptian faction for this era, but I loved it all the same because of their flavor. They had a completely different aesthetic when it came to the other factions. You could take over Egypt, and you can take the world wonders, which I think there were 4 or 5 of them, and if you take them, they give you bonuses such as the pyramids, others, the statue of Zeus, to name another. So it was a lot of fun with the game itself because it was a good mixture of main historical, heavy on historical, and fantasy, slight fantasy. On March 9th, 2005, Sega announced that it had sealed an acquisition with Creative Assembly. And in July 2005, they acquired the publishing rights to Rome Total War from Activision. The first game, or the first expansion coming from Sega, was on September 25th, 2005. We got Barbarian Invasion. This game begins in 363 AD and ends in 476 AD, and adds a plethora of factions that you can play, such as the Western Roman Empire, Eastern Roman Empire, Huns, Goths, Sarmatians, Saxons, Sassanids, and added religion in the form of 3 separate religions to show the religious tension of the time, such as Christianity, Zoroastrianism, and paganism. Rome Total War and Barbarian Invasion would be bundled together under the Gold Edition, and they were received with universal acclaim, with such praise coming from PC Gamer UK as saying it was the all-time 5th best PC game, IGN giving it the award for the 4th best PC game of all time, PC Gamer and GameSpot both giving it the best strategy game of 2004, Metacritic giving it 92 out of 100, Eurogamer giving it a 9 out of 10, IGN giving it a 9.4 out of 10, and the list goes on. This game was good. Now, when it comes back to me, the story comes back around, and one day during late 2005 actually, I wandered into a GameStop just to browse, not really looking to buy anything, and I looked through the computer games that they had for selection at the time. I was looking through them. I still remember, honestly, I really do. But I remember seeing the cover art for the Gold Edition that had both Rome Total War and Barbarian Invasion, and looking at it and being like, oh my god, this looks fantastic. Like, the artwork itself was impressive, but what the box had stated, that was the best thing about it. I believe it was in the back of the box, but it stated that it was real-time massive battles, and it had massive in all caps. And I was smitten at that point because there was no other game besides maybe Black and White that had armies that you could sort of control. And so being able to control specific units to form an entire army and use your strategy against your opponents was something that I couldn't have dreamed of at the time. I went and asked my mommy to buy that game for me that day, and she did. I was lucky, even though I didn't have a gaming computer, that my computer could still run. The computer that we just got from the store was a really old shitty computer, but it could still run the game on the lowest settings that it had. It was awesome. I was excited. I was happy. I used to play, again, Civilization, so that the game could run Civilization and run this was a blessing. And I played that game the entire year, and now here comes a game that I did not get a chance to get my hands on or until much later on when the games came out on Steam, which was Rome Total War Alexander. That came out in June 16th, 2006. This game was put in an earlier time period where you took command of Alexander and the Macedonians, trying to recreate his empire from history. The game itself played like Napoleon, and it got a generally favorable reception. Prior to that, though, a game did come out that I did get my hands on for GameCube that I'm not going to go ahead and go into too much detail about here because I wanted this to be focused on Total War series, but it can be stated that Spartan Total Warrior wasn't a game that was part of Creative Assembly's library. The game's plot revolves around a Spartan warrior that secretly is guided by the god Ares, and it follows him as he fights alongside his Greek allies against the invading Roman Empire, which is an amazing setting. The game itself, I played it, I had no idea that it came from Creative Assembly or that it came from Total War. I just remember getting it, my father got it for me, and the game itself was kind of fun. I mean, it was linear, there was some glitches in the game, there was some things that were buggy, but overall I had an enjoyable experience with it. And honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing some sort of recreation of that in modern times because this game was very much similar to the God of War series. But I do want to move on to November 10th, 2006.
Storm clouds gather over Europe. Mistrust and rivalries between realms threaten to break and flood the world in a tide of total war.
When Medieval 2 Total War was finally released. Now this is a sequel to Medieval Total War, which I have not covered in this series, but prior to this, for those of you who don't know, prior to this, there were two other games that came out from Creative Assembly when they were with Activision. That is Shogun Total War and Medieval Total War, which are both much older games, but I decided to go ahead and start with Rome Total War because that's where I started with the Total War series. And this game is set between the years 1080 and 1530 and focuses on the European conflict during the medieval ages. But the factions that you could play with this game was probably the most fun part. As opposed to the Rome Total War, Barbarian Invasion, even Alexander, those are factions, those are races, countries that I personally had to learn about from the game. Prior to me getting the game, I had no real knowledge of antiquity, of medieval European antiquity. So those games became my teacher. While Medieval 2, I had some familiarity with the conflicts themselves a little bit, crusades and all that. I knew more about the factions that took place because they were more recognizable to me. England, France, Spain, the list goes on. And this game did have a ton of playable factions that each one not as different as the ones in Rome Total War, but still different enough that the replay value for this game was extremely high. The game added religion. It was a comeback to religion, and invasions, which was a brand new concept that we still see in Total War to this day. The two invasions that you get are the Mongol invasion and Timurid invasion, and what that means is at some point on the far eastern side of the map, like 5 or 6 stacks would just come out of nowhere, and you'd have to fend them off from destroying and ravaging your lands, and that was the big boss. So playing as any of the eastern factions was a bitch at a certain point. But for those of you who were skilled and experienced Total War players, it was a welcome challenge, because the game, even on its hardest difficulties, did get easy after a few playthroughs. The game itself was not perfect. There were some bugs to work out, and on 15th of December 2006 a patch came out that fixed most of them, but on the general reception it got generally favorable reviews, just like Alexander did. On Metacritic it got 88 out of 100, Eurogamer 9 out of 10, basically PC Gamer gave it a 90%, so it didn't do as good as Rome Total War, but it was still a very, very good game. And I would say I played this game specifically for many years. I played it for a very, very long time while the other games were coming out. Empire and Napoleon, I was still playing Medieval because of how good the game was, because how entertaining it was to take the map, because there were so many provinces, especially on mainland Europe, that you could take and create a chunk of a kingdom for yourself. On August 28th, 2007, we got Medieval to Total War Kingdoms, which was one of the most ambitious, in my opinion, expansions that we've seen so far, and different than any other expansion that we've gotten so far, because it gave you different campaigns to play through. You could play through the Americas campaign. It gave you 7 playable factions. It gave you New Spain, the Aztec Empire, the Mayans, even the Apachean tribes. The Britannia campaign focused mainly on the British Isles, giving you England, Ireland, Scotland. The Crusades campaign gave you Jerusalem, the Kingdom of Jerusalem, the Ayyubid Egypt, the Seljuk Turks, and the Teutonic campaign gave you the State of the Teutonic Order, the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, the Kingdom of Denmark. Each campaign seemed small from the Grand campaign, but still had a sense of epicness that even for those of you who enjoy the Grand campaign, you could spend hours and hours and days on just one of these individual campaigns. Kingdoms got a very favorable reception, very favorable views or reviews. As for me, I did buy Medieval 2 early on just by itself, and then I bought Kingdoms right after that, and for me the best Kingdoms campaign was the Americas campaign. Now, I am Hispanic. My ancestry is Mayan. I'm half Guatemalan, half Spanish from Spain. So for me, it was awesome playing as 2 countries, 2 peoples that are part of me genetically. And that's the appeal to a lot of people. That's the appeal to a lot of people who play these games, especially Europeans, because you get factions that are your ancestors, factions that are your people now, and you can control them and play them any way you see fit. That's why most of the time when I play civilization games, I'm America, because that's my nation. Or if they have the Mayan option, I'll be the Mayans. Or if they have Spain, I'll be Spain. When Empire came out, I loved the Americas campaign because it was awesome, because it gave me the option of being America. So with the uniqueness of this phenomenon, it was no wonder that these games got the critical reception that they so rightly deserved. After the release of Kingdoms, I had been playing Rome Total War, I've been playing Medieval 2, and I played Kingdoms for quite some time, but around 2007 to 2008, I had been having some family issues, and I've been having some school issues, and I was having almost every kind of issue that you can imagine. I was really not focusing anything online, anything on my computer, anything about gaming. I was doing a lot of stuff out in the world. I was hanging out with friends or so-called friends, and I was just not really focused on Total War at all. my focus was non-existent, really. For many, many years, I thought I was the only one playing Total War. I thought I was the only one who knew about Rome Total War. Not many people, actually almost nobody knew about Rome Total War from the people that I knew. The only person that I knew was one of my uncles. He had played Civ and he had played Rome Total War. But besides that, nobody else knew about these games that I had so much fallen in love with until February 5th, 2008. Prince of Macedon's first live commentary battle. I'm not gonna say that I had watched this video specifically. Honestly, the first video of Prince of Macedon that I watched was him playing as the Seleucids, I believe, against Macedon. And it was a pike battle. But as soon as I watched it, I was completely enthralled with this sort of entertainment because I did watch decisive battles and I loved seeing the commentary along with Rome Total War. When I watched Prince of Macedon play it for the first time that I watched it, I felt the same sort of, oh, there's somebody else. There's somebody else just like me. At the time, he is the first Total War YouTuber commentator on YouTube. The father of Total War YouTubers, in my opinion. And his videos influenced the community in such a large way. Obviously, it was years after Rome Total War came out. And it was Medieval 2 Total War, and Kingdoms had already come out also. Prince of Macedon seemed to focus mainly on Rome Total War for the majority of his videos, if not all his videos, up until even Empire. But that was enough for many people.
Hi, this is the Heir of Carthage, bringing you my first ever commentary video on Rome Total War. This is an online battle where I'll be commanding a gallant legion of the Julii Romans against my worthy opponent of Macedon, commanded by Lafrancus. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Before I introduce my army, let me give a special thanks to the Prince of Macedon for inspiring us all to make these fine YouTube videos involving our most beloved game, Rome.
Personally, I didn't begin to watch Heir of Carthage until Empire. The only Total War YouTuber that I knew at that time was Prince of Macedon. I did not know there were any others. And with his videos actually kind of grounded me at that time. My most troublesome time, the most turmoil that I've ever been in my entire life. It grounded me back to what I loved to do, what I loved to play, and what I loved to watch. And it had a profound effect on me in growing up. With Heir of Carthage's first commentated YouTube video on June 12th, 2009, that was the beginning of what would become the onslaught, the rising of the Total War YouTuber. These two YouTubers would affect so many throughout the many years and throughout the several more ages that we have left. This is the Bronze Age, the beginning of me starting in Total War, the beginning of Total War as most of us have known it. Most of us have started with Rome 2. There are very few that started before then. And Rome began my interest in delving into other countries' histories. Medieval 2 Kingdoms started my interest in delving into my own history, my own past. Prince of Macedon brought me back from the brink with his videos. And both him and Heir of Carthage began the culture of the Total War YouTuber. With the next several ages, we will talk about the other games. And for those of you who hadn't watched my announcement video, I'll tell you the ages right now. The next age will be the Silver Age, and I will be speaking about everything that happened between the beginning of Empire Total War to the end of Napoleon, or to the beginning, close to the beginning of Shogun 2. Everything that happened, all the YouTubers that came up, the tournaments that were had, the things that happened in Creative Assembly, those things I will talk about. After the Silver Age, we have the Gold Age, Shogun 2, Rise of the Samurai, and Fall of the Samurai, and everything that happened in between. Then we have the Dark Ages, where we will be talking about Rome 2 Total War, things that happened with that, and Attila Total War. And last but not least, we have Fantasy Age, which we have Total War Arena, and what we have now of Total War Warhammer. Thanks again so much for watching this, guys, and supporting this video. The announcement video has had so many views that I'm so happy that you guys have supported it in such a way, and I hope that you guys please support this video in that similar fashion. That way the next videos can also be supported this way. This is a project. It'll take time for me to create the rest, but it'll be worth it. This is our history, guys. This is about us. That is the reason that I wanted to make these videos, because we need our own history. We need to know and to remember what happened. And for those of you who are coming in just now, I'm sure many of you want to know how this all began and how this all started out, and the highs and lows, all that. That's what I want to show you. Please support this video. Please support the next video and the rest of the series, guys. I would really appreciate it. Let me know in the comment section below if I missed anything, if there's anything that I had gotten wrong, because I'm only human, guys. So put in the comment section, or what your thoughts are on this series, this video, or what you guys would like to see in the next videos, what you guys would like me not to miss in the next videos. Put in the comment section below. Let's even get over 100 likes, 100 for this video, please. We did it for the announcement video. Let's do it for this one. And as always, if you like what you see here and you want to see more, you like my videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Become a Sunscriber today. This is going to be Sunjutsu signing off. Take care, guys. Before I was even aware of it, Rome Total War was released, developed by Creative Assembly, and released by Activision. Now, the game prior to release had a workable game engine and cinematics for the television series, actually 2 television series, Decisive Battles by History Channel and Time Commanders by BBC.
The vast numbers of soldiers, the troop formations, how they fought, and how the battle was won. Get the view the generals wish they had. Now, on Decisive Battles.
Now, I hadn't watched both these shows until much later on around. By the time that I actually got my hands on Rome Total War, I started watching Decisive Battles. Unfortunately, I didn't watch Time Commanders until much later because I didn't have BBC back then.
Hello, I am the Prince of Macedon. I'm gonna try to make a video where you can actually watch from my own point of view. For this battle, I have chosen the Macedonians, and my opponent has picked the Seleucids.
Before Total War, back in middle school, what I would do during class when I was supposed to be paying attention, I would take pieces of scrap paper, notebook paper, draw huge continents on them. On these continents, I would make up nations, and have these nations go to war with each other. They would have territorial lines and armies, normally derived by X's and O's, on the drawn continent. It was a hobby derived out of boredom throughout my classes, but also intrigue in city management, country management, and army management, also war management. And the only games back then that could scratch this itch would be the early Civilization games, Black and White, and SimCity. But on September 22nd, 2004, it can be difficult if you are, or if you were a novice at the game, but after a few battles you will get the hang of outsmarting the AI. One of my most favorite parts of the game was probably the siege battles, mainly because the siege battles in both this game and Medieval 2, with all the other ones in between, are the most fun because they are very secular, very small. And I always loved how the enemy would, after you took the walls, they would run back to the center square. They would try to form up, blocking the exits, or the entrances I mean, and then you could surround them and attack them from all sides, trying to penetrate a hole. It was very, very amusing seeing the AI trying to block up or plug holes in their defenses. It was also amusing seeing them seeing the little units fall off the wall once you were taking them if you had wall battles. The game itself, in my opinion, was ahead of its time. On the campaign map, you could use spies, diplomats, assassins, counter-espionage, all of that. And decisive battles made me love this game even more. It basically was a History Channel documentary on battles taking place during the game's era, and it would play out what happened throughout the battles using the Total War engine, something that has never been done since then. The game takes place during the ending of the Roman Republic and the early Roman Empire, and you can choose one of 3 factions to play as. Obviously you can play as all 3 of them throughout your gameplays, but you can play as the Julii, the Brutii, or the Scipii, and they start on different sides or different areas of the Italian peninsula. They are essentially Rome. During the course of the game, you can unlock the rest of the factions, which there are many, either by defeating one at a time or beating the game, completing the campaign. You can use the armies in real-time battles, facing off against your opponents, having to outsmart the AI, which at first